Good evening and welcome to the Centre for Soul Conscious Living. My name is Jude Pemell and this is the Let's Talk series. And I'd like to begin by acknowledging that I speak from unceded Aboriginal land, the land of the Cammeraygal people, and I'd like to pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging, and to any Aboriginal people who may be with us. I'd also like to acknowledge that this was, is, and always will be Aboriginal land. And so welcome everybody, wherever you are. And tonight's topic is managing and resolving conflict. And it's actually quite a big topic. So without further ado, I shall begin. And please feel free. I do consider this an interactive program. So if you have a question or a comment or you want to know more about something, do stop me, do interrupt. I'm very happy to be interrupted. Again, I like the interactive style, which, Zoom doesn't exactly encourage, but so.
Jude, if I raise my hands, can you see that? I don't know how it works. So I'll just let me just try.
Okay.
Can you see?
Look, I can, but I'm probably not particularly going to be looking for raised hands, to be honest.
Okay.
So just unmute and interrupt. You have my full permission. Okay. So dealing with conflict is another core issue. I've talked about a lot of core issues, and conflict is an issue for most people. I mean, let's get that straight. Most people don't like conflict. But when people have come from dysfunctional family backgrounds or themselves have a history of addiction, they will be particularly sensitive to dealing with conflict. And this is a core issue that touches on and interacts with most other core issues. Anyone who's grown up in a troubled or dysfunctional family has probably learned to avoid conflict whenever possible. And when conflict does occur, often the first reaction is to withdraw from it in some way. Another reaction is to become aggressive and try to overpower the person or persons with whom the conflict has arisen, resorting to vocal escalation or shouting at the other person. When these techniques fail, I may become devious and attempt to manipulate. So in a dysfunctional family, such methods may assure survival. But when I leave my family of origin and begin to seek healthy, intimate relationships, none of these methods will work. If I have undealt with core issues around anger or fear of rejection and abandonment, conflict will trigger and activate these, so that my whole early experience in my family plays out again and again and again, which for some people may become quite overwhelming. The healing of core issues means healing that little child within us. And I'm sure all of you understand the concept of the inner child. which is, a very real thing. It's a very real aspect of us. And so dealing with conflict is built on slowing everything right down and discovering conflict after conflict and then working through each one. So the fear and other painful feelings that can come up as we get closer to the conflict may be too much to experience for some. And so rather than face the pain and conflict head on, I may revert to the old coping mechanisms, which may include, I'll just do it on my own. However, this is a problem in itself because doing it on my own has not worked well in the past. It takes courage and honesty to recognise and work through conflict. And if I'm going to develop close, intimate, fulfilling relationships in my life, then I will need to be able to recognise and deal with conflict effectively. So, regardless of whether conflicts arise in the workplace, the family, or in a one-on-one relationship, we can employ similar skills to begin resolving these issues. However, for the first part of this, I'm going to focus on the more personal conflicts first. And because workplace issues may involve groups, I will deal with those later, and actually we'll see how far we get. The skills, however, are very similar and the same, many the same. So the first thing in a personal situation, I need to reframe the conflict as a healthy, natural part of any human relationship and as an opportunity to collaborate in working it through, for myself at least. The more relaxed I feel as I go into work through a conflict with someone, then the more relaxed they will feel too. You may want to make a time and place to meet so that neither of you are under time pressure and can be in a relaxed situation. This obviously is when you and the other person have had a preliminary chat, said, okay, we have an issue here. What I would suggest is that I say, I would really like to resolve this, but I don't believe here is a good place to do that, or at this time perhaps we could meet at another time and perhaps in a neutral environment or situation. So you really want to take pressure, as much pressure off this meeting as you can, and make the situation as calm and relaxed as possible.
Jude, can I actually just 1 minute, just for that thought, if that person is not cooperative, it's not talking to me at all, not responding, so what do I do in that circumstances?
You mean the person is giving you the silent treatment? Is that the situation?
Yeah. Basically, the back treatment, yeah.
Right. Is it a long-term situation or short-term?
Well, it's become a long-term now, 6 months.
Right.
I think that's long-term, yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. Then the silent treatment is a coping mechanism that they are using to avoid the conflict. And of course, nothing can be resolved. So if someone's not willing to come to the table. And anyway, let's just work through this and I'll answer your question as we go. I think, you know, until both parties are willing to come to the table, you don't really have a starting point except to acknowledge that there is an issue and, you know, it is remaining unresolved. And so I think all you can do is express a desire, talk to the person directly, have good eye contact and say, I'm acknowledging that there is a real issue here. And I'm just letting you know that I am willing to come to the table with the goal of resolving this. And so if you would like to discuss that, if you would like to think about that and get back to me, or we can talk about it right now. And then see if you've got a starting point. But if they are not willing to come to the table, you can't make them. You know, unless it's a work situation. If it's a personal situation, I don't see how you can make them. If it's a work situation, you may not be able to get anywhere, except you may have a manager who would intervene in the interests of the workplace relations. So if this is a very sensitive situation, it means it's emotionally loaded. So there's probably a fair bit bubbling under the surface, a fair bit of fear. There may be fear of losing the relationship altogether. And so once you've agreed to come to the table and have a discussion, you know, you may want to set some boundaries that we will treat one another with respect, that we won't raise our voices, that we will listen carefully to one another. You know, you can set ground rules which can bring the emotional pressure down. And sometimes it's, you know, what's really effective is to say, just declare your feelings and say, look, I really want this to work out and I am feeling a bit anxious, or I'm feeling really anxious. And I do want this to go well, and I believe that we can work this out. And I certainly hold the hope that we can bring this to a conclusion that works for both of us. And what I find in confronting situations, often just naming your feelings to the other party can help to bring that emotional intensity down. And then you can say, you know, how are you feeling? And so very often having a table or a piece of furniture between you can give a sense of physical distance and safety. In other words, don't sit too close together. Don't sit too far apart. I mean, don't want to be on opposite sides of the room. But just having something in between you, a piece of furniture, anything, can just create a little bit of a visual and physical barrier, and it has a psychological effect. Of course, it's also important to be in an environment that is safe and comfortable for both parties. And so a neutral environment may be chosen, and it's good to discuss that beforehand. So in order to say, well, it shouldn't be at my place or your place, but let's meet somewhere neutral and that where we're both comfortable, and let's definitely meet when we're not pressured for time or have other things going on. And I will let you know if something else comes up beforehand that's really distracting my attention. I will let you know, and I would like you to let me know too, because I want to give this my complete attention, and I would like you to give it yours as well. So you give it that sense of importance. You're investing a lot of goodwill here. And as I've stated, you can recognize and acknowledge your own feelings. Am I feeling afraid or threatened? Am I afraid of being wrong? Am I a sort of person who likes to be right all the time? There's nothing particularly abnormal about that. I know I've wanted to be right in many situations. I've had to work on that. So just acknowledging how we're feeling with the other person, particularly if it's a one-on-one relationship, very close relation, intimate relationship, or a close friend. I just think it's a really good idea. And then you can express your desire to work the issue through and express the confidence that I'm confident that we can work this out together, whatever it is. Because to me, the relationship is what's important here, the preservation of the relationship. But also to me, a good relationship is one where we can address these issues. And I really want to address this and work it through with you because I respect you or whatever. You may then offer your own understanding of the issue. This is how I understand what's happening. And I'm really curious to hear your understanding of what's happening. And so listen to what the other person is saying. We need to really employ active listening here. So the person needs to see it in your eyes that you're having eye contact with them, that your body language is open and receptive, that you're not sitting there like this. That you're open, that you're acknowledging, that you're receptive and actively listening and reflecting what the other person is saying, that you're wanting to understand their position and what is going on for them. Now, what is going on for them, to me, is actually very important. And when this is stated, it means you care. And I think, in resolving conflict, we should not leave caring out of the equation. Because being able to resolve conflict, regardless of who it's with, is something most of us do care about. So after you've offered your own understanding of the issue and listened to their understanding of the issue, you'll decide who's going to start. But the rule is that I use I statements when speaking about myself. I own my own feelings and experiences. I do not use you statements because that's accusatory language. So I don't start a sentence with, you did this. I don't point. I really have to watch my body language. But rather, we use the I feel statements. I felt that when you did that, or I feel this when you do X or Y. And it might be, I noticed you changed the subject when I said X. And that caused me to feel that my feelings are not important to you, or my experience is not important to you. So I'd really like to understand what was really going on here. So if you did not, as you talk this through, if you did not intend to come across in a certain way, and the other person finds that you did, then I need to apologize and explain that was not my intention. What I was trying to convey was remembering to use the I statements. Don't use statements that begin with you, no accusations. It may come down to saying what I saw the expression I saw in your face, the expression I saw in your eyes, what your body language was saying to me was. And it's really good to use body language and physical cues. And remembering that active listening, so that when someone says something to you, it's okay. If I heard right, what you said was blah, 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 blah. So active listening and reflecting allows the other person to know that you are really wanting to understand their position and their experience of that conflict. So I need to be flexible and ready to let go if things aren't worked out exactly as I would like. So there can be no ultimatums, no either or else's. Either you do this or else. This is not how we resolve conflict. There is no needing to be right. That is a no-no. And there are no aggressive demands. We have to be very careful with demands in sorting these things out, because the ability to compromise is vital if you want to reach a solution or a conclusion that works for both of you. So compromising is the name of the game. And if you believe you cannot compromise, you may not be ready to engage in this process. Or if the other person is not ready to compromise, then it really can jeopardize this whole thing, this whole process. So But Ranjula, particularly in your situation, there has to be a willingness on both sides of the equation to come to the table. And if somebody is giving you the silent treatment, if it's a personal situation, then this is a way, silence is a way of avoiding the relationship. It's a way of avoiding genuine contact with another person. And, being aggressive also is doing exactly the same thing. We can avoid real contact with another in many, many ways. Silence is one of them. And so until that person is willing to come to the table, it's going to be very difficult for you. It's very dysfunctional behaviour, obviously. And as I said, it is a way of avoiding genuine contact with another person. So personal and professional conflicts can emerge from several different factors, and these include miscommunication, prioritization, and unmet expectations. What corporate models of conflict resolution tend to miss is the fact that at least half the population come from dysfunctional family backgrounds. So the unpacking of emotions is not addressed. In a work situations, emotions can run high. Sorry, I'm probably going to have to blow my nose at times. So emotions can run high in professional situations just like they can in personal situations. So it is important to acknowledge emotionally loaded conflicts and to do whatever possible to address the emotional aspects. In a one-on-one situation, in a more close personal relationship, there is more of an environment for doing this, whereas corporate environments might not be terribly good at this, particularly when you've got some person in HR who's learned some conflict resolution skills, but isn't really trained to deal with emotionally loaded situations. That really does take a psychotherapist, a psychologist, a counsellor, someone like that. So I'm going to move on now to professional situations or work situations with a bit of an example. And, perhaps the energy in the room is tense. You can cut the atmosphere with a knife. Any group situation, perhaps a team-wide announcement was just released that took everyone by surprise. Or maybe it's Monday after the company Christmas party that got a bit out of control. You can feel that conflict is brewing between some of the co-workers, partners, and maybe even customers. and you want to know whether to address it or avoid it. Of course, if you're the supervisor, the coordinator, the manager, or the boss, this will be much more, the ball will be in your court, much more. And even if I'm not in one of those situations, I can go to that in charge person and say, look, I'm picking this up. I think, you need to deal with it. So even with that said, we'd all love to work in an organisation that's free from disagreement and conflict, but we know that that's not going to be possible. Conflict is a kind of communication that does help us collaborate to solve problems, to better understand our environments, and then thrive within them. So, if conflict never, ever comes up, that is not necessarily a good thing. It just means that probably means that a lot is being unacknowledged or repressed. It's normal for conflicts to come up. So many people fear conflict. We want everyone to be satisfied, and we want every workday to be great. And conflict can't possibly be conducive to that goal, or can it? So here again, the reframing of conflict in the workplace, that it is a healthy, important part of working relationships, of any relationship, and especially work relationships, because it means that people are actively negotiating their needs and expectations with others. And that's exactly what helps us stay happy with our workplace interactions. We need to be able to talk about issues, talk about things, and work them through. And these are very healthy ways of being, personally and in our work lives, or in any other environments in which we interact with others. So what exactly is conflict resolution? Well, it's the process in which two or more parties work toward a solution to a problem or a dispute. The parties involved work together to achieve a solution that solves the problem in a way that is constructive or productive. And so conflict management skills in the workplace, particularly if you're a boss or a manager, you need these skills. Conflict management can be approached using a variety of different styles. And while these styles may differ, every method utilises the same management skills. To successfully manage conflict, you need to hound each of these skills and learn the right time to exercise each one. So I'll talk about some of the score kills and characteristics needed to effectively manage workplace conflict. And, these really are no different to the ones we need in a personal conflict. So the first is active listening, and it focuses on being attentive to what other people or person has to say. This skill is commonly used by salespeople to connect with customers during a pitch, but it's also a universal competency that any consummate professional needs to master. To practice active listening, the most important thing you can do is have an open mind and open ears. To do this, make note of the other person's phrasing and respond using their same wording. This demonstrates that you were listening and helps clear up any confusion about the points being discussed. Additionally, be sure to ask questions. If you're confused about a point, and focus on identifying the other person's goals. You must know what they want from this. And so at the beginning of one of these conflict resolution sessions, I think it's important to say to the different parties, now, what do you want from this session? What would you like to walk away from this session with? And then that can be used as a focus. So we've talked about active listening, and this is another competency. It's called emotional intelligence. And it describes the ability to understand other people's emotions as well as your own. This skill is essential when managing conflict because it prevents the situation from escalating, hopefully. If you can effectively interpret the person sitting opposite you, if you can interpret their emotions, it'll be easier to communicate them without provoking. And we certainly don't want to provoke people in these situations. Recognizing and curtailing confusion, anger, and frustration from the conflict leaves space for everyone involved to think creatively and logically about a solution. The next competency, well, we need patience, because conflicts may not be a simple matter to deal with. And if there were, I guess there wouldn't be 22,000 people searching for conflict resolution on the internet every month. Conflict resolution is so difficult because people don't like to be wrong and will often hold their stance on an issue because of that fact alone. If you're looking to resolve a conflict with a person like this, you will need patience. It is important to keep in mind that the problem may not be solved right away, even if the solution is really obvious. So ideally, you want to take the time to listen to every participant in this conflict, if there's more than one other or more than two, and value each argument evenly. Even if there's a clear answer, rushing to a resolution can make people feel that they're left out in the decision-making process. Although there is one exception to this rule. Taking the time to equally consider all options can help create a long-term solution that will save you a headache later. And the fourth competency is called neutrality or impartiality. If you're mediating, in other words. So another reason conflicts can be difficult to resolve is because they don't always stay focused on the conflict itself. It can serve as an opportunity to air previous grievances that have developed between the involved parties over time. And now the problem at hand can't be resolved until the historical issues are addressed. In this type of situation, it's best to separate the conflict from the people who are involved with it. Don't focus on the people and their personal characteristics. Instead, look at the problem itself and center your energy on finding a solution. While it might be important to work through those past issues at some point, don't deprioritize the situation at hand right now to solve the older historical ones, because this can derail your situation completely. So remember the mantra, important versus urgent. You can definitely work on the other important issues that impede you from meeting goals at a later time, but urgent issues should be handled first. The next competency is, well, the fifth, it's positivity. And so it's hard to come to agree on a solution if no one is happy about it. Even if you do agree, a half-hearted compromise won't motivate you to follow through on your end of the bargain. This can even provide a participant with an excuse to avoid dealing with the conflict altogether. So being positive with your conflict management actions is a great way to keep the conversation moving forward. Conflicts are full of roadblocks, and you'll need to be willing to overcome them if you want to come to a resolution. Having a positive attitude going into the conflict can help other participants who may be wary of the interaction feel more at ease. And so the sixth competency is around open communication. Relationships between people involved in a conflict don't always go back to normal when a problem is resolved. This relationship needs to be nurtured after a solution is found in order to prevent future issues from arising. Creating an open line of communication between the parties is the best approach for fostering a healthy long-term relationship post-conflict. This allows both parties to check in on one another and make sure that both ends of the agreement are being upheld. If new challenges arise, a precedent of open communication should make it easier for participants to address the roadblock without risking any progress they've previously made. While understanding these skills can help you and your team manage conflicts and prevent them from escalating, it's important to understand how you can apply them in action when conflict emerges. And so in this next section, I'll break down some of the ways you can use these skills to produce effective resolutions to conflict. So these are basic conflict resolution skills if you're mediating. Certainly also if you're in the conflict, if you're part of it. So use yes and statements, not either or, either else. Don't point fingers. Let the person explain themselves and actively listen. Use I statements. Now, this one's actually really important. Maintain a calm tone. So I'm going to need some emotional management to come into this kind of situation. Show a willingness to compromise or collaborate. Don't gossip about people with whom you're in conflict. Don't talk behind their backs about them. And don't take anything, or don't talk about the situation behind people's backs. Don't take anything personally. You know, we need to identify the conflict. It's like when two people come to therapy for marriage counselling, it's the relationship that is the client, not so much either person. And so we need to sort of have that perspective. Pay close attention to nonverbal communication. Prioritise resolving the conflict over being right. Know when to apologise and forgive. Focus on the conflict at hand and not past conflicts. Use humour when appropriate. And finally, remember the importance of the relationship. The management skills that I just listed, are crucial for conflict resolution because they do help produce effective long-term solutions. Applying these skills at the right time and in the right situation will help reduce miscommunication and create more opportunities for participants to reach common ground. If you're not sure how you can best use these skills to resolve your disputes, check these next little points I'm going to mention, because they're recommended for considering whenever you next approach a conflict. So using yes and statements. So don't use the word no. In any conflict, whether it's professional or personal, it is so easy to jump to the defense. Your banter might include a series of no's and yes but statements, which might come across as uncooperative. Rather than getting defensive about an attack on your particular argument, take it as an opportunity to see things from a different point of view. You don't have to agree with that person, but you can try to understand where they're coming from. Just as you have your opinion, they have theirs, and refusing to hear their point of view creates an impossible scenario to navigate. And so you might be saying things, okay, I can understand from your point of view, I can understand that you would feel like that. And so change those yes, I hear you, but statements into yes, I understand and they build off one another rather than tearing each other down. So no finger pointing. Jumping on the offensive is disrespectful. Being on the offensive creates a negative foundation that makes it nearly impossible to find a solution. Don't dump blame on others or create a space in which someone feels unsafe to speak or voice their opinion. The best way to solve a conflict is by allowing each person to frame their argument without being blamed or shut down. After all, you wouldn't appreciate the same being done to you either. And, if someone's getting hot under the collar with you, you can say, look, I really want to understand what you're saying to me. Can you say it in a way that I can listen to you, that I can hear you? Because their voice may be raised and they may be coming on a bit strong. I want to understand you. Can you just say it in a way that I really can listen to you? It's worth a try. Let the person explain themselves. And actively listening. Listening is a huge aspect of conflict resolution that is typically overlooked. It might seem imperative to get your voice in as much as possible so you can explain every little detail of your argument and try as hard as you can to get the opposing party to see your side. But don't let this idea tempt you. The temporary satisfaction of airing it out isn't worth it in the long run. Instead, let the other person explain themselves uninterrupted. If I'm doing a mediation or involved in one of these, I will set ground rules, and it's always everyone will have uninterrupted airtime to say what is happening for them. Please use I statements. No use statements, or I will come in and stop you if I'm the mediator or the facilitator. No blaming, own our own feelings. So I always set the ground rules if I'm facilitating something of this nature. And when people can just explain themselves uninterrupted, I may find that I misinterpreted their original argument. So I'll be more equipped to handle compromising or collaborating on a new solution if I've taken the time to listen, think, and plan. So statements that begin with you come across as blaming. Conflict should not be about what the other person is doing wrong. It's about what you believe you're doing right and how to get the other side to understand. So using I statements such as, I feel like I'm not getting the chance to explain myself, rather than, you're not listening to me, can transform your conversation. These statements make your argument more about your emotions, opinions, personal beliefs, and morals, rather than about all the things you don't like about the opposing party. No one can disagree with opinions or feelings you believe or stand by. Plus, they make for a more respectful debate that reminds all parties that cognitively complex human beings are involved. And so maintaining a calm tone. So I will benefit from remaining level-headed in order to think rationally about a solution that will appeal to both parties. This can be a tough one because it's not always easy for me to hear my own tone from someone else's perspective. Because of this, there's one trick you can practice to avoid having a discourteous tone when mitigating conflicts. Wait until you've let out your emotions before you plan a time to meet and have a discussion with the opposing party. You know, it can be a good idea, you know, to have a bit of a cry or a vent, or, you know, talk it through with someone else who's not involved first, so that you can let all your feelings out. And so it's better to do that with someone else than during this conflict resolution. So when you enter the actual conflict resolution meeting, it's really good to be calm and ready to discuss with consideration for differing perspectives. So show a willingness to compromise or collaborate.
Okay, Jude, I will have another question here.
Yeah.
So how do you actually subside your emotions at the time you are speaking? I know you said to keep calm.
Yes. What you can do, you can say, I'm just feeling very, very strong emotions at the moment. I'm feeling really angry. Just own what you're feeling and say, I think, and you can do this, I think I just need to put this discussion on hold for the moment, and perhaps we could come back to it tomorrow or at a later time today or whatever, because I just need to I'm getting too elevated, and I don't think that's a good place for me to be really hearing you or to work this through. So you can always say that. And if you feel someone is attacking you, you can always say, I'm feeling really attacked. And, you know, part of me is feeling really attacked. And now another part of me is wanting to defend myself. And that's not how I want to do this. That's not how we can resolve this. So, you know, maybe we just need to, I'm feeling too elevated. I'd just like to take a break. So you can put your own needs first in this way. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. I'll try that. I'll try that, definitely. Yes.
I think it's very important. I think it's very, very important always to honor what you are feeling and experiencing.
Another thing you mentioned about taking that space
That's right.
for yourself.
Yeah. If you don't feel if you are feeling attacked or it's not going well, say, I think we need to take a break here because it seems to be getting derailed. I want this to work, but I feel this is getting derailed. I'm feeling attacked or whatever. How are you feeling? You can ask them. Okay, I would like for us to agree to take a break, and we will reconvene this afternoon or tomorrow or next week.
That sounds a great idea. Thank you for that. Wow, jewels of knowledge here.
Yes, you know, remember to always honor what's happening for you. And using appropriate language is also very important. If someone is shouting at you or attacking you or blaming you, you can say, I am feeling attacked and blamed right now. You've raised your voice, you're shouting at me. And it's very hard for me to listen to. It's very hard for me to hear what you're actually wanting to say at the moment. So I'd like to just take a break. I can't hear you right now. I'd like us to take a break and for us to reconvene when we're both feeling calm and able to talk this through more peacefully and quietly.
It's like a difficult customer. I had one on Friday, actually.
Oh.
Yeah, she kept on talking and she's raising her voice, you know, a bit of foul language as well. So I basically just told her, you know, can you please, you know, calm down, just quiet for a few minutes while I actually did my work. And I said, I can't actually think when you're talking. Yeah, so just giving them that, I suppose they need to be silent for us to actually work out what their issue is.
Yes, and look, there's nothing wrong with saying to someone, look, I'm really sorry. It's really hard for me to hear you. If you could turn your volume down a bit, it actually would be easier for me to hear you. I really do want to understand what you're saying.
That's true.
Being impolite won't help the cause.
No, it won't. Yeah.
So
you need to understand their needs. Yes, I actually agree with that active listening that you said. Taking that point very seriously and understanding where they're coming from. And really, really like understanding what their issue is, why they are behaving in that manner.
So we need to show a willingness to compromise or collaborate with the other person, depending on the situation. depending on the situation, other conflict management styles may be more effective, but for smaller, trivial conflicts, avoiding them may make sense. An accommodating style may work when the other party seems to care much more about the solution than you do. Particularly in a trivial situation, it might be just a lot easier to let something go. A compromising style could be the choice when there is limited time to make a decision and you simply need to put your foot down. However, in most other significant conflicts, it's essential to come to some sort of agreement between both parties. Sometimes you'll simply need to let go of your pride and your grip on your argument. Show the opposing party that as much as you care about the conflict and presenting your side of it, you care more about coming to a solution that works for everyone involved. And now they don't talk behind people's backs, because what happens between you and the opposing party should stay between you and them, unless it's absolutely necessary to divulge the details of your conflict. But when's a good time to share the details of a conflict? Believe it or not, there's a golden rule about sharing sensitive information, like conflict resolutions. Share up, not out or down. This means that if you feel comfortable and if it's significant to your role, you can confide in your supervisor or someone in a higher position than you about the conflict. They can help you navigate the situation and form a support system for future conflicts that may arise. This also means that you should never share the details with a colleague or someone in a similar role or a subordinate to you, as they are not likely to be able to offer this same level of support. Conflict resolution should always be built on honesty with one another and trust that what was said will remain confidential. While you may sometimes have the urge to vent, consider other options to do so that won't affect the reputation of that person and won't muddy the atmosphere in which you are working or engaging with that group of people. You could write out your feelings in a journal, talk to someone outside of your workplace or this place of engagement who has no ties to the situation at all or people involved. And you keep the name of that person anonymous. And this way you can protect the privacy of the conversation. Don't take anything personally. Conflict with a customer or a team member is typically not a conflict with you personally. It will usually involve policies that you as an employee must adhere to, or even unvoiced expectations that other people have regarding your role or profession. So a conflict that emerges is rarely ever an attack on you as an individual. Many people get defensive or upset or refuse to budge on an argument because they cling to their viewpoint as if it's a part of themselves. If you can learn to separate yourself from the conflict, it will be a lot easier to accept compromise or a collaborated solution, that is better for all parties involved. So we need to also pay close attention to non-verbal communication. Not everyone is great at handling a conflict head-on. These are the people who might typically lean towards avoiding or accommodating conflict management styles. Basically, these people don't like conflict and won't always be transparent with you about what they want or need. So in these
I have another thing.
Yeah.
Oops. Sorry, I have another thing. So body consciousness, body like the way you're sitting is actually plays a big part also, yeah?
Your body language.
Body language, yes. Yeah.
Yes. It's like I said, you know, if you're in this position, that's very defensive. It's actually a very defensive and can be, if you're leaning forward, you know, talking in someone's face, that's very aggressive. You will not, these are big don'ts for resolving conflict. These are activating conflict, this kind of body language. And so what we want to do is calm the situation down. So body language is really, really, really important. A body language will tell you when someone is saying one thing but means another. And by being emotionally aware, you can notice when someone's posture or gestures or facial expressions differ from their words. And you can say to someone, you're saying this, but at the same time, you're doing this or this. And I feel like you're really in my face and it just feels really confrontational. Yet your words are saying, let's work this out. And so I'm getting mixed messages. I'm getting very conflicting messages here. Could you just clarify where you're really at with this for me? You know, when someone says, I'm fine, you can tell they're not fine if they avert your eyes. If someone won't have eye contact with you, it's because they're angry. They don't want to engage. So you can say you want to, you know, you might say to someone, you say you want to work this through, yet you're not looking at me. You're not having eye contact with me. That tells me that you're really angry. Got a little message here, body language. Oh, it's gone. So you know, if we're paying attention to people's body language, we can reflect. As long as we're calm and just noticing, you know, it's good to use that word. Look, I notice you, you know, I hear you saying this, but what I'm noticing in your body language is this. And just, you know, reflecting is a really good tool to use if you're, you know. So then you can create an environment that either makes that person or you feel more comfortable being honest with you. And number 10, well, we need to prioritize resolving the conflict over being right. A conflict in the workplace is typically one that involves more than just yourself. Perhaps it's a frustrating call with an angry customer or an issue with a policy change implemented by your manager. Whatever it may be, the situation goes beyond you. So when you're trying to resolve the conflict, you might need to take a step back and assess the situation in such a way. Recognize that even if you have a strong opinion on one end of the spectrum, it might be beneficial to wave the white flag if it ultimately improves the conditions for everyone else. Conflict resolution, now and again, is about making those sacrifices. And so 11 is knowing when to apologize and forgive. So 2 of the hardest words to say are, I'm sorry. It's not easy to apologize when you feel like you were right all along. Don't let pride deter you from making amends with the opposing party. In an instant when the other person might be responsible for apologising to you, you may feel so riled up about comments they made that you don't think you can forgive them. However, these relationships are professional first. We may need to put aside our personal annoyances and really work to forgive that person. This will make for a healthier relationship moving forward. And I don't want to intimate that forgiving in all situations can be all that easy, because it may not. But ultimately, it may be the best solution. So I need to focus on the conflict at hand, not a whole lot of past stuff. Memories of past conflicts you've had with that person coming up in the heat of the moment are not going to move things forward. So if a conflict emerges or there's something that bothers you about someone else, you should reach out and ask to discuss it within 48 hours. Once that time frame has passed, let it go. So any pent-up frustrations about past conflicts that were never resolved should not be brought up later, especially a year or two later on when trying to resolve a different conflict. The time has passed, and it's important to remain in the present. Use humour when appropriate. It can lighten the mood during conflict resolution, and it's only appropriate in conflicts that are not personal. You do not ever want to offend someone by making a joke about a sensitive topic. So consider humour to be a tool to help you both loosen up and feel more comfortable discussing a solution. Read the other party and use your best judgment to decide if humour is something that they would appreciate. Sometimes that's all it takes to end an argument and turn it into a constructive conversation. And finally, remember the importance of the relationship. At the end of the day, a conflict is usually one small roadblock in an otherwise healthy relationship. Whether you need to remember the good times or change the scenery or discuss a different topic, try to remember how the relationship was prior to the conflict and operate within that headspace as you reach common ground. Now, there is more, but I'm thinking there's sufficiently more to stop here.
Wow, it's a huge topic, isn't it?
Oh, it's a very big topic.
Yeah.
And you look,
we all need it. Yeah.
Well, we do.
Just one thought came to me. I think, I don't know, it's just my judgment, I suppose. Not actually overly saying sorry in that conversation also. I mean, you can say sorry once or twice, but not being like sorry the whole time in the conversation.
No. What I think is important, if an apology is given, it needs to be meant. So if you're always saying you're sorry, it doesn't mean anything.
That's true, yes.
And when making an apology, it's important to say, I understand that by doing or saying X, 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 and X, that this was very distressing for you, that I caused you distress, and I can understand that you're angry with me about that, blah, blah, blah. And I want to apologize. That was not my intention, or, whatever. So, but I'm really very, very sorry that I have caused you this distress, and I will make every effort not to do it again. One well-phrased, well-meant apology at the end, or at the appropriate moment, will be very, very meaningful. Making amends when I've done the wrong thing, when I've really hurt someone, might be unintentional, might be intentional, whatever, but it is very important for me and for my own growth to own that and to make amends in a serious, meaningful way, because it will just diffuse, it can diffuse the entire situation. It can absolutely diffuse the other person's pain and anger. I've had amends made to me when I've completely forgiven the person, and it still meant a lot. And I had this happen to me. I've had this happen to me a few times when I've thought, I haven't held on to any of this, and here they are making this amends to me, and yet I have felt energy at a deep level, something in me at a deep level just melt and dissolve. And so it really has made a difference to the relationship. It's built trust. So when I show that I am capable, that I'm willing to eat, to eat my pride, to make a very, very meaningful amends to someone, it can just change everything. And I've been on the receiving end of that, and I will apologize too. I mean, we have to learn to apologize with humility.
Mm. And actually, a funny thing happened the other day. I had someone, after 10 years, they actually rang and apologized for something they'd done like 10 years ago.
Wow.
And I couldn't remember. Yeah. I was struck with that. Wow. I said, wow, what is this? Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. I think, what is sad is when a really good friendship is ended because of the inability to resolve conflict, because someone is not willing to say, hey, we've been friends for however many years, and what happened between us the other day or whatever is something I really need to talk to you about, because it left me not feeling too good. But to end a friendship or to walk away from something, or to start treating the other person rather than resolve the conflict, to be upfront with the other person and say what is bothering you, it's just so dysfunctional. And so addressing our conflicts, it is very, very important. I'm going to leave this here. And we will pick it up next week. So,
May I suggest one more topic, Jude?
yeah,
Since we talked about body language,
yeah,
can we do that one next after this continuation of this one?
a body
Please.
language.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think that in itself is a whole topic.
I think I did actually. It did have some LinkedIn courses, I suppose, for that, which we do at work.
Right.
But anyway, let me have a look.
Anyway, does anybody else want to say anything or ask anything? Okay. In that case, we're just going to finish with a very short meditation. And I won't play any music, but I will speak a very short commentary. And I move my awareness into the inside of my being. I bring my energy into my heart. Become aware of the sensation within. And I breathe deeply into that place, turning down the volume of my thoughts, lowering the volume of the outside world, letting go of the day. I bring myself into the present moment, into the now. Away from the past and the future, into this very moment, here and now, where I simply exist, where I can just be, breathing into this moment. I move deep within. Where there is no sound, just the silence around me. And the peace. The stillness inside. Here, in the sweetest silence, I can just be. I feel drawn deeper and deeper into the silence. And I connect with the source of life. Source of silence. This being draws me toward itself. Filling me with love. Surrounding me with light. Filling me with lightness. I'm safe. And protected. No matter what. Om Shanti.